So it's late autumn and we're coming into winter. Before you know it, it's going to get very, very cold. We'll be down to 0 degree temperatures fairly consistently. When that does happen, the Ned Rig for me does come into play. I do use it a fair amount. When the water temperatures drop, the fish become a little bit more lethargic. They're not chasing lures like they were. It's harder to get those reaction strikes. And so in that scenario, I think you're better off trying at least an inert bait that's not really doing much, slowly bumping it around the bottom and trying to pick up the odd fish that way. I certainly in the past have done reasonably okay on the Ned Rig. I've certainly had situations where I'm out and I'm moving different lures around the swims at pace, not catching any fish, switching to a squirm or one of the other Floatex lures and got the result that I'm after. But as a rig, it is used quite a lot and the fish do wise up to it. So what I want to talk about is how we can switch things up with the Ned Rig as you go into the winter. So just quickly, the rod and reel I use for this type of fishing. Here I've got the ZT rod. It's a 1 to 10 gram rod. I've got the new switch reel in a 1500 size. Onto that, I've got 11-pound Illuminate braid. I've got a leader that's about 4 foot long, and that is either 6 or 10-pound fluorocarbon. Right, and now down to the business end and the bit that I really want to talk about. As you can see, that is really what I would call a default squirm, right? It's the larger size squirm in a natural colour, and I've just got it on a 5 gram jig head. It's a size 1 5 gram jig head. So like I say, that is your default really, your default Ned. Like with any lure, the fish can wise up to this. You know, it's not the silver bullet. We are going to have to work at this a bit, and just like with any lure, chuck it at them too many times, they will start to wise up to it. So what I want to talk about is a few things that we might try to try and keep the bites coming on the Ned Rig. First thing, before we get onto the lure, let's have a look at the jig head. This is 5 gram jig head, fairly standard, size 1. Play around with swapping that out for the 3 gram. That will make it drop slower in the water. Remember, we're bumping this and there will be a little bit of a fall. A 3 gram will drop slower. You can go even lighter than that, down to 2s and 1s. I certainly do that as well. Just trying a little bit more finesse. That's definitely something to play around with. Of course, absolutely no reason why you can't fish weedless on a Cheb rig. So certainly play around with that presentation. And again, in terms of the size of the weight, you can certainly play around with that as well. Obviously, the other thing to play around with is the colour. The squirms come in a lot of different colours now. Certainly when the water's coloured, I tend to like to create strong profiles. So that's either really light silverfish or really dark, the Dart Lord. But certainly have a play around with the colours. Everyone's got their favourites. But certainly with all that put to one side, I find the most effective thing to do when the bites dry up on the full size squirm like that is to switch up the profile of that lure. I've been in a swim before where I've been casting just the, you know, the full size squirm out the pack around the swim. I'm not getting anything. Unbelievably, I've simply trimmed about 1 centimetre or 1.5 centimetres off the top of the squirm and had a fish straight away. So if you can see there, I've got 3 just standard squirms. You can see I've cut them to different lengths to create what I call a stubby. Play around with that. You know, these are soft plastics. They're only made of Floatex rubber, easy to cut. Trim them, play around with them, change up the profile. That might help you get those bites you're after. Of course, the other thing you can try is the 5 centimetre squirm, the mini squirms. That will obviously change up the profile. It's a classic technique really, whether you're using shads, creature baits, or indeed these squirms. Scaling things down when things are tricky can sometimes get you the bite you're after. And finally, just a couple of other things that you can try. I've started to put skirts on some of my squirms, just again to switch up the profile. And something that I've always done is put my squirms all in a bag and just apply oil, which you can get in a number of different flavours. And anchovy oil has always been one of my favourites to just give those lures a bit of a boost. And so there you have it. There's my take on the Ned Rig and how you might want to switch it up to keep those bites coming through the winter.